Thank you for joining us today for Permission for Pleasure, which is a special guest speaker series hosted at Live with Intent. Our mission and purpose is to bring harmony and wealth to all areas of your life. And the more wealth you receive, the more pleasure you receive in all parts of your world. If you've enjoyed this content, please like, subscribe, and share. And if there's anything in particular that you'd like to learn more about in service of your highest life and your most prosperous life, please comment below or please connect with us directly, and it would be an honor and privilege to serve this to you. Have a beautiful day. Welcome to Permission for Pleasure, where we empower women to create liberated empires anchored in leadership harmony in service of your highest mind, body, and soul wellness. I am your host, Amy Jones, and in today's episode, we will be connecting with my dear friend, Yodhananta Soewandi, an identity mentor, belief system specialist, and meditation instructor. Yodha provides support to beautiful people of all communities and categories who are suffering emotional trauma and transforming all of their stresses into a state of deep inner peace with ease and love. Having overcome 3 mental disorders which manifested from mental and emotional turmoil of being a non-binary, polysexual, or different, through meditation and transforming his fears of being misunderstood and his limiting beliefs of no self-worth, he has brought peace to a war that has raged within him for 20 years. He believes that everyone and everything is a blessing and that no one is a mistake in this beautiful world. Having become his authentic self, he is determined to help others claim their true selves so that they can shine as the diamond we truly are. I'm getting emotional. I'm really grateful to have you here today. Thank you. During our 30-minute conversation, we're going to share with our listeners your empowering personal journey of mind, body, soul wellness anchored in leadership harmony. Yodha, thank you for being here today.
Wow, Amy, the honor is totally mine, okay? I mean, I just got emotional from you introducing me. I feel so honored and just so loved from that introduction. I really felt that energy from you, and it's amazing. I just have to say it, okay? Thank you so much for that amazing, eloquent introduction.
Oh, I need to have a box of tissues when I do this. Oh, I would love to start and have you share your story of inspiration, to put some context into where you were, where you are, and where you're going, and what has inspired you to share your story today.
Wow, where to begin? But luckily, you provided a beautiful starting point through that introduction. Absolutely unforgettable introduction. And as you've said, I did overcome 3 mental disorders, and that's essentially where my personal journey began. So I struggled with 3 different types of mental disorders, all diagnosed across the years. First with bipolar disorder type 2, and then afterwards I was diagnosed with dissociative identity disorder, or multiple personality disorder as more commonly known back then, and schizophrenia. And I was in a place where many of us, mental disorder survivors find themselves, which is stagnant, dependent on medication and traditional Western forms of therapy, which did not fix the problem, but manage the problem. And it was through that experience of not being able to feel or articulate my emotions in any way as the intended effects of the medication that I was on, I felt a calling within me to look for something different. I just could no longer live like that. not being able to be in tune with my emotions as chaotic as they were before the medication was still a lot more fulfilling for me than being a emotionless robot just going through day-to-day routines with no particular meaningful direction. And I made a step of leaving these traditional therapies behind to try and find something different. And I was very and am still blessed with the most supportive system of family, friends, and you know, health professionals that really said, okay, let's do this. Let's try and find a solution. And that's how I stumbled upon meditation, and it took me on this new path of understanding why did I have the mental disorders that I had? Why was I going through this experience? What was the reason? I was not, I should say, happy with the conventional answers of, oh, you have a genetic disposition, you have family history and all that. To me, it was just all fanfare. Like, it just didn't really touch on the root issue of why. It just explained that perhaps the physiological responses that I am having is causing these disorders, right? But it didn't lead me to anywhere where there could be a potential solution of a better life, because I just wanted a better life. I wanted a life filled with color, filled with fun, and I wasn't getting that. And because of the traditional therapies and the medication. So I went cold turkey just one fine day. I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna do this anymore. I'm leaving everything behind. I knew it was a crazy idea. I knew it was a very bold step, and I was expecting all the resistance I could ever imagine. But I received the opposite. I received 100% support, and everyone was willing to hold my hand through this. I'll never be bored of saying thank you. Thank you to my parents, thank you to my aunts and uncles, my siblings, like everyone who just supported me. And because when I discovered meditation, there was something that I never thought to consider. Perhaps also because of my own fear, which is facing the traumas that cause the disorders or the imbalances in my mental health and emotional health in the first place. Because in the many years that I was going through traditional therapies, there was no talk of finding the root cause and healing it. The word healing or heal was so foreign to me, because it's not the point of traditional therapy. It was all about management. It's all about being a functional member of society.
Surviving.
Essentially surviving. So it was a completely new concept, and I dove in headfirst, went all in, and wanted to better understand what is this healing thing that people are talking about, no matter the consequences. And yes, it was shocking at first, because then I was suddenly presented right in front of my eyes the very pains and the very memories that have triggered these disorders to manifest. And just to make a very long story short, the traumas that triggered my disorders essentially were: I was molested when I was 10 years old. I was bullied a lot at school, and I had a multitude of experiences where I felt where I was shunned, where I was labeled a certain way. I was pointed as the black sheep, and it was very isolating, and I felt very alone. And it was that loneliness and that frustration of being isolated was just too much for a young kid, basically. And my mental stability collapsed, basically. And all these disorders came about as a coping mechanism. And when I came out of that tunnel, right, of this dark tunnel, right, some due to not only amazing health professionals that were willing to try this experiment with me, because what I was trying to do is completely unheard of, essentially. It's like, okay, let's heal, these disorders with no medication, just with meditation and counseling. you know, no one thought it was ever possible, but hey, maybe because I'm a little bit stubborn, and I just said, no matter what, I'm gonna make this happen. And sure enough, 6 years. It took about 6 years. We were able to get momentum, and then healing started taking place. And so it was completely new territory. I was just, I suppose, breaking ground with, my psychiatrist and my meditation teacher, and because I I was never ever placed in a position where I had to look within. And I feel like that's a skill that everyone should have, because not looking within leave us so blind. Because I was I was just going through the motions before I took this leap of faith, just accepting whatever paradigms or whatever concepts are prescribed to me, right? And there was no conversation about look within yourself, or the answer is within and all that, and which actually they are. And so as I went on through this journey, I discovered new teachers. I discovered, for example, this amazing organization that I'm affiliated with called the Golden Space, that took me deeper into this journey of healing, of not only accepting my condition, my disorders, because that was also a big part of my own healing process, accepting who I am as I am. Someone with disorder, someone who is different, someone who doesn't necessarily fit in. And, and it was through that process as well of understanding that truth, of self-acceptance as the first major step in claiming yourself. Because I was lost, right? As was mentioned in my little biography, there was a war that raged within me for 20 years. And that war was that inner conflict of, who the heck am I and why am I here? Why am I going through so much adversity, so much suffering? Why? What is the purpose of my human? To quote an amazing comedian, Hannah Gatsby, what is the purpose of my human? Like, why? And the fact that I could not answer, reconcile with that truth, was the biggest roadblock for me, that I had to deal with first, before everything else. And when I discovered the Golden Space and I went on this amazing retreats called Awaken the Divine You, it brought me to another phase, again, another surprise, which is, okay, look, you're settled now, everything's all good on the outside, but there might be other things that are sabotaging you every day. And I was like, what? Now we're talking about self-sabotaging concepts? What is this? And it's like, and I remember thinking to myself, will this ever stop? And basically, learning never stops, right? I mean, I've heard that so many times in a movie or like in a book. Your life is all about learning, and you never stop learning, no matter how old you are or who you are, what you are. It never stops.
Yeah.
But at first, I was a little bit averse, because I was like, okay, I just want to be better, and just be worry free, and just relax for the rest of my life once I've done all whatever healing I need to do, and that's where I also was able to build this, I suppose, this spirit of growth, this spirit of learning, this spirit of entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship, not just in the sense of business, but entrepreneurship in the sense of always innovating, personally and externally. And I'm very proud to share that the last episode of any of my disorders was back in 2017, and I've been free of medication as well since 2012. Oh, that's a while now. 2012. And I've been able to, manage my disorders pretty much. I considered myself healed because it doesn't come up anymore, and all my alternate personalities have all subsided, and and basically, again, as I've come out of this tunnel, my first thought was, wow, if someone like me can do this, then anyone can heal whatever pains or traumas that they have. And that's why I've decided to share my story through as many platforms, or as many in many ways and as many methods as possible, because like, everyone needs to know this. Everyone needs to realize this truth that everyone can heal themselves. Everyone can overcome anything. You just
You're
have
all
to
people.
have the tenacity
Yeah.
and also the faith in yourself. And this is a question that I get a lot, especially from other mental disorder survivors. It's like, oh, what got you through it? What's the secret recipe? What's the formula? And honestly, there's no formula. But there is a secret recipe, which is like tenacity and just faith in yourself. Because I didn't have the answers. I don't have a degree in psychology. I didn't read a million books and made the educated decision that this might be the best path forward. It was just literally me listening to my heart. It's like, wow, this life of mine doesn't make sense. I want to make a change, and like, that's literally it. And what got me through it day to day was the faith that tomorrow will be better than today. So, and that's what has inspired me to become, an identity mentor, a belief system specialist, and a meditation instructor, as one of the ways to share my story and empower others, uplift others to take the step to overcome their emotional traumas. I'm not saying that it's easy. Uh, Perhaps that's a common perception from those who have heard my story or have attended my previous talks. But disclaimer: I'm not saying it's easy. What I'm saying, it's possible, and that's all you need. It's possible.
I have written down so many notes. Just one second. And thank you for sharing your story. Like, wow. And this is truthfully, like, we've known each other a couple of years now, and I love you. And this is the first time I've heard you share it in this capacity. And I'm just really grateful to receive it all and just have this space and this stage for you to share, because your story is so powerful. You are so powerful. I mean, every single person is powerful. And you're right. If you can do this, anybody can. It might not be easy, but it's possible. I love that. And I want to ask you a couple of things I wrote down specifically. And, what type of, maybe challenges or lessons did you learn? And I think the one thing that kind of jumped out at me is being able to go slowly through your healing, because as you know, medication, it's like surface, it's putting a band-aid, it's not getting to the root of the problem. And I've experienced this in my own life as well, where I just felt like I was putting a band-aid on things. And funny enough, meditation and energy, with my deep dive into the subconscious that rules 97% of us. And I had to learn how to do that really slowly and safely, because if you go fast, you close up, because you want to keep yourself safe and protected. And I'd love for you to share your experience on how you kept your nervous system, your system safe and protected by moving through this slowly. 'Cause yeah, it takes a while, but it's like the tortoise and the hare, right? And you're the tortoise. And that grounded, anchoring, fierce, confident forward step is slow. It might not get us what we want right away in the world of instant gratification, but it's powerful. And I'd love you to just sink into this a little bit and share your wisdom around this for those that are wanting a quick fix, or it's not fast enough, or you know I'm going to be better when I get there. The whole point is to be here now. And I love that you're so anchored and present in your being. And I'd love you to just provide some context around that if you can.
It would be my pleasure because it's something that I'm passionate about as well. As you say, we live in a world of instant gratification, right? Things that happen quickly, come quickly, whether it's a material thing, whether it's an answer, whether it's, you know, even food is considered, instant. Like everything seems very instant. But what do we lose when we rush things, right? We know, let's say, when we're trying to achieve a certain goal. Let's say, imagine ourselves running a marathon. If we are so focused in rushing to our destination, we run the risk of stumbling, we run the
Mm.
risk of running out of steam, running out of energy, right? The key to success to any marathon runner is energy and calorie management, right? And that's a very plain and logical concept. And it's the same with us. If we want to go into that deep dive, we have to make sure we have the stamina for it. Hence, there's also a part of acknowledgement, which I believe is the most important step in looking within and just looking deeper to ourselves and our lives, is to acknowledge what is. That needs to come first because most of the time we have not been present for ourselves. We have not been fully acknowledging and aware of everything that's going on inside of our bodies. Too often, actually, we push aside the signs, the messages that our bodies have been telling us, whether it's the physical body or the mind or even the heart. We can be so tunnel visioned, right? And the easiest example is, let's say we're trying to chase or complete a deadline, whether it's at work, whether it's at school, and we know that we need to stay up a few nights. And hey, it's so natural for us to do that, right? It's like, I know I'm tired, but I can do this. And we can do it because our body is always very supportive of whatever we do. But once we're done in achieving that goal, we collapse, right? Then the fatigue sets in. Then the tiredness, hugs us and holds us back practically, and some of us fall sick, right? And so just reflect on, in the day-to-day, what signs from ourselves that we are pushing aside, right? Even the practice of greeting each other day to day with, in my opinion, one of the most self-sabotaging phrases of modern day: I'm fine, right?
Ugh,
It's become such a robotic response, like an
it's just
automated,
reflective.
reflexive, response. Like, because it's very polite to ask people, how are you? And it's as polite to respond, and most of the time we just say, I'm fine. But are we always fine? Are we really always fine? Not necessarily, right? And so, again, that's another example of us pushing aside the science. And every day we are telling ourselves these white lies. So, and if we're lying to ourselves every day, what kind of life are we creating for ourselves, right? How can we be happy if we're not even honest to ourselves? And that's what acknowledging what is about. Before we start talking about deep dive and the trauma and like what triggers you and all that jazz, let's step back and acknowledge what's happening now. But of course, we must do this free of any judgment, free of any, expectations or specific, just lovingly acknowledge what is. If you're tired, and that's okay. If you're anxious, then say that you're anxious, and it's okay. Because it's okay not, to not be okay. And that's something that needs to be normalized, in my opinion, right? We are so programmed to be a certain way or to have this facade or like, to like have this figured out. And that's why if you also look at social media, that's what you see, right? You see that facade of well put together and perfect and all that. But, most of us know that life isn't that one dimensional. These amazing people that share their story isn't sharing their whole entire story, right? And I feel like we often forget that. We often forget that life is not black and white. Life is black, white, gray, and all the colors in the rainbow in between, And that's what makes life colorful. And I can say this because I lost all that color in my life because of the medication that I was on. Because I could not interpret anything else other than black and white. But that has made me so dull and disconnected from the world and myself. And, I'd like to end this sort of portion with a quote, one of my favorite quotes. I actually got it from a dear friend of mine. His name is Ade, and he said that, you know what, Yoda? Not even instant noodle is instant. And
Oh,
I said, it's like, what do you mean? Well, if you think about it, you have to cook the water first. And then once the water's boiling, whether it's from a dispenser or a kettle or a pot, you still have to pour in the water into the noodle mix or cup or whatever it is, and you have to let it sit for a while, right? So technically it's not instant. So if instant noodle is not even instant, why how can you ever imagine personal growth or healing being instant? And I just love the way he puts it
I love it.
because it's like so true and so relatable. And I
And
feel like it's a good reminder of, hey, even in times where it seems to be instant, we also need to practice patience.
yep. And when you want to move, take another moment because that's where the shift is going to happen. As you were talking, I just kept hearing filter. Every single thing in our world is filtered based on keeping us safe and protected, um, not wanting to be seen and heard, not allowing ourselves to be authentic, to be vulnerable. But that's the magic and the medicine and the wisdom. And that's where I do feel this world is um, releasing the filters, but there's so many layers to this. And to just remember we're human, we're not perfect. And if this is a journey, and if our journey um, is to really enjoy life, it's to take the filters off when you have the awareness and to pause. And the very first thing I invite you to do is ask yourself, like you said, how are you? You. How are you feeling? What do you need? Because we live in a huge world, and yet a lot of us feel really lonely and alone because there's no connection. Okay, where's the connection with yourself? And I think it's so powerful what you've done is you've reconnected with yourself. You've released the aloneness within yourself, and you've ignited that light that was dimmed from your previous experiences, and you're paying forward this beautiful message of joy. And the fastest way to joy is through gratitude. And I'd love to hear what you're most grateful for.
Wow, such a powerful question. And the reason why I say this is because I have so many things to be grateful for, but first and foremost, I am grateful for my strength, for the resilience of my mind, for the commitment of my heart, and the strength, the physical strength of my body. Because I have put myself through a lot. Not just, not just in the context of medication and whatnot, but also, you know, through all the pain that I've gone through in my life. You know, my body has carried it for so long. My mind has saved it and nurtured it for so long, as I was busy in trying to figure out the external world, and leaving it in a little box under lock and key in the depths of my very being. And so that's what I'm most grateful for is myself, first and foremost, because I wouldn't be here if my mind, my heart, and my body did not have the strength nor the stamina to push through all the walls I had to climb over, break through, run around, and everything in between.
That's your leadership. That's your self leadership that you, it's that anchoring belief that nobody can take away from you because you chose to face your fears. And like, yeah, I love that. I feel that. So looking back, would you have done anything differently, or did everything go as you expected?
Well, looking back, there is nothing I would change. I have no regrets, and everything went as swimmingly as I could ever hope for. Nothing definitely went to plan,
Yeah.
but I guess weaving through the the ever changing plans and outcomes was the joy. And reaching a certain point or a certain milestone in that path, and just looking back and being able to appreciate the I guess the miles I've covered, that's the joy.
Yeah. And far
You
too
know,
often we skim the surface and want to get to the next thing. And stopping and being in the present to appreciate and celebrate is so powerful. So powerful.
and that celebration needs to not only highlight the big things, but also the little things.
Yep.
Something that we often do as well is undermine our achievements. I mean, being able to wake up every morning is in itself an achievement. Because we know there are people out there who don't have that luxury
Yeah.
to wake up healthily,
Yeah.
with energy, with drive, with purpose, with, a goal. Like that in itself is a privilege, and it's something that I don't take for granted.
Yeah. I agree. And there's always something to be grateful for. Always. So, where are you going now? Do you know what your journey looks like? Do you have an idea? Are you enjoying floating for the first time? Where do you see your journey unfolding to next?
Well, it's very interesting how you use the word floating, because that's literally my current experience in my life, and because I am at a crossroads in terms of career, and I've been an entrepreneur, and running my own business for a while now, and I made a decision recently to be more focused on the healing work, and helping others directly. Yes, in the corporate space, I've been blessed with the opportunity to heal and help so many people as well. From a like human capital enrichment perspective, which is something that I'm also passionate about. But what the pandemic has taught me is I have other interests, and that life and passions evolve. Because when I was able to settle myself and overcome all of my disorders and everything, and I felt, all good, like, oh, I don't have to take any medication, I don't have to see the psychiatrist anymore, I can live my own life, this is fantastic, living the dream, and I made a very clear plan for myself that, oh, I'm going to be, I'm going to be this kind of person, I'm going to be in this kind of industry and all that, you know, I felt that that was it. I felt that I had no more planning to do. It was like all good. It's just smooth sailing from here on out, right? But obviously that is not the case, because after uh, you know 9 years being corporate, and really focusing in that space, I've discovered that, okay, I've learned a lot in these past few years, which I'm very grateful for, but I want to pursue other ways of helping people,
I
which
just
is why.
felt that like right here. Oh, yeah.
So, well, thank you, Amy. Thank you for sharing that as well. So I find myself revisiting my goals and my life statement, and also my purpose, my life purpose. And I had to embrace the fact that truly life is ever changing and nothing is permanent. And it's okay to evolve, it's okay to change, to try a different path. And, I find it really interesting for me personally that I found it more difficult to take this leap of faith of trying a different career path, and establishing a new foundation for my life, than going cold turkey with my medication. you know, uh,
Why do you think that is?
it's because it is something that's completely outside of my comfort zone. When I took that leap of faith of going cold turkey with my medication, and at that time I was taking over 13 different types of medication.
Mhm.
Some there was even a moment where I was taking 18 different types of drugs,
Yeah.
and that world, that experience and sensation was very familiar. So it's very easy for me to articulate the opposite of that. So it's like If I were to go cold turkey, then I would lose my ability to think clearly. I would have more episodes. I would have this and that. It was very clear cut in my eyes. But now, first of all, building a career completely new in the first place, having overcome all my disorders and centered myself and everything. Building a career was a new experience. So trying a new career and pursuing a different path in this sense is completely foreign to me, which is why it summed up a lot of fear and a lot of confusion. Because this is not something I am familiar with and not something that I can articulate. It's
It's
like,
not
oh, if I
predictable.
exactly not predictable.
Yeah.
So,
And you
and
take medicine, and if I take a medicine, this is the result. Good or bad, I take this, I get that. This is the world that we live in. Do this, get that. And I feel this because I'm in a similar spot as you. We're being invited to trust, to deepen our inner guidance, because that is the truth. And that is the pureness of unfiltered joy. And it's scary to know that that's all you have to do to get everything you want. And so we do everything we can to block it. And so it takes an incredible amount of courage and strength and tenacity and trust and structure to look within and allow yourself to receive what's in, because it's all there. It takes a tremendous amount of courage, and you have to go through some of these external experiences to get the strength.
that's true. That's true.
Now, trust to go into this space that you can't see, but everything you want is right there. So I'm really looking forward to watching what unfolds for you. I know it's going to be magic. I know it. I'm really excited. And I'd love to end. I know we went over, but I always seem to. I'd love to end this with some advice, some words of wisdom for those that are listening. What would you like to leave your audience with today?
Wow. Thank you so much for the opportunity, first of all. And I am so humbled by this experience and by this opportunity, and just so grateful. I can't thank you enough. In terms of advice, I just would like to share my experience of the last 2 years throughout the pandemic, and what inspired me to be, as my title suggests, a belief system specialist. Because when I overcame all of my disorders, I felt I was on top of the world. I felt again, as I've said before, living the dream. And I was so confident that the healing was done. And yes, there's new learnings to be had in terms of making a career and establishing a life for myself. But in terms of the deeper healings and processes that had to happen, has already happened. Or so I thought. Because when the pandemic happened, I found myself dealing with hyper stressful situations, as I'm sure many of us can relate to in the last, intense 2 years, of the world. And it was the first time ever in my whole entire life, basically, where I had to deal with all these hyper stressful situations by myself. And what do I mean by myself? I no longer had my coping mechanisms with me. I didn't have my alternate personalities to take over the wheel and drive for me. I didn't have, my schizophrenic episodes to take me to, other worlds and through delusions of grandeur that would just wash away all these distractions and distortions,
Mm.
right? I was centered, I was grounded, suddenly face to face with these problems. And my biggest takeaway from this is that no matter how much emotional clearing and healing that you go through, and all the acceptance and forgiveness and that you go through, there's the mental component that should not be forgotten. And what do I mean by mental components? Our limiting beliefs.
Mhm.
Because all the traumas that I had left a wound in my heart, but it also left a series of beliefs in me. Beliefs that I was not enough, beliefs that something was wrong with me, the belief that I didn't belong anywhere, or that I was broken, I was not fixable, and that I was diseased, or and many others, right? And it's not that I prescribe to these beliefs consciously and that it guided my life directly, but rather they were self-sabotaging voices in my head that slowed down my pace and made my vision and my thoughts and my articulation of life itself very hazy. And that's when I realized that every one of us are living in a prison of our own limiting beliefs. That's what stops us from taking that leap of faith, from trying something different, from believing different, because of these belief systems that we developed when we were young. And no one is to blame, but it's something that can be changed and transformed. And that's why I've dedicated the last 2 years trying to understand these limiting beliefs and how do belief systems work, and how to transform them on a deep level where it's not a band-aid, it's literally transformation of the belief. And so I just want to leave this bit of advice that no matter who you are, where you are, what you are, as you are listening to this sharing, you are amazing, you are talented, you are an absolute genius, but currently you are just being held back by limiting beliefs, by your wounds, by your trauma, by your pain, and it's okay because they can be healed, they can be transformed, because yes, you can change. And it's in your own hands, it's in your own power. So claim it because it's rightfully yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Absolutely have the power to change. This has been really, really beautiful, really, really powerful. Thank you for sharing your your unbelievable story. I'm just showing all the notes that I've made while we've been talking, which I'll take a screenshot and share with everybody. And you really do encapsulate joy and an expansion of joy. And it's just, I love it. It's beautiful. You're beautiful. Thank you. What is something that you would like to leave our viewers with as a way to connect in and say thank you for sharing this beautiful space with us today?
Well, please feel free to connect with me, whether it's on Instagram or on Facebook, or also you can check out my practitioner profile on my website. And you can also book in a session if you're interested to transform your limiting beliefs. And I am providing a special discount to all the listeners here today through a special code that my dearest friend Amy will be sharing with all of you. And all you have to do is just use the code at when you book a session with me, and it would be an absolute honor to work with you and transform and break through some beliefs.
Thank you very much, Yoda. I will put all of your contact information at the bottom and your discount code. And I look forward to the many lives that get impacted and transformed from your message of joy filled pay it forward. Thank you so much for sharing this beautiful space with us today. Much love, and you are welcome back anytime, as you know.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you so much for this opportunity again. I'm so grateful, and it's been really really fun.
Yeah, it has. I always have good conversations with you. Thank you, Yoda. Much love.
Love you, Amy. Until next time, and thank you, everyone.